It was definitely bound to happen. McLaren building an SUV. Finally, I think they're going to release it in 2028. And honestly, I don't know how McLaren has been able to stay alive without an SUV on their lineup. We have Porsche, of course, for the Cayenne. I think that was the first the sports company to introduce an SUV. You have Lamborghini Urus, Ferrari Purosangue. What else do we have? We have Aston Martin DBX. All of them have already created SUVs. And if you look at the sales numbers for these SUVs in relation to the rest of the lineup for these companies, it's often more than 50% of the revenue. So McLaren not having an SUV in their lineup is definitely hurting them for sure. But as I said, they are going to drop an SUV in 2028. And we have some new information about it. We have these renderings here as well. 3 completely different renderings. I'm going to let you know which one I prefer and which one I think might be closest to what we will actually see from McLaren. Before we jump in Photoshop here, though, let's have a look at this article from Car Scoops because there's quite a lot to go through when it comes to this new SUV. So I'm going to link it down below. As always, McLaren dealers just got a glimpse of the new SUV, and it's bigger than you think. Now, this is a very deep sentence. Think than you think. I wonder what the author meant by that. Company plans to launch at least one new model each year through 2028. Here we have one rendering, and honestly, I think this looks pretty good. But I do think that this might still be too close to what McLaren is producing today when it comes to the design language, because they say also that they're going to introduce a completely new design language with this SUV, and I'm not sure what that is going to look like. They've hinted at it with this wraparound interior and this wraparound windshield. I guess similar to what we have on Koenigsegg's for the new design language. So they say that the McLaren SUV resembles a larger Cayenne Turbo GT. Split headlights, of course, a roof spine, and a large rear spoiler. Is supposed to be powered by a hybrid V8. Love to hear it. Not bad at all. The project has finally taken shape and is expected to be introduced in 2028. Now, I would want to be part of these dealer previews. I would love to see what this looks like, even though I wouldn't, leak the photos. I would just get an idea so I could describe to you what I would see if I was part of these dealer previews that we have here. So they previewed a clay model describing it as having a silhouette reminiscent of the Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT, meaning I do think maybe it's not going to be a coupe SUV, maybe more of a proper SUV. They say it's larger than the Cayenne Turbo GT and sculpted in muscular stance with over 24-inch wheels. It sounds good so far. You have the competitor to Purosangue, of course, Urus, Aston Martin DBX, and I don't think we can put the Cayenne as maybe we could. It's a little bit cheaper, of course, than what this is going to be, but it's still a supercar SUV, I would call it, the Cayenne Turbo, specifically with the e-hybrid. It's just insane. So the new SUV will be among the first production models to showcase McLaren's updated design language. As I said, split headlights that's supposed to sit flush with the body. It's going to be very interesting to see, because now what we have in McLaren is big holes in the front end, almost like a skeleton face, and then you have the headlights sitting inside of these holes. For example, I think the best example would be the 720S. But here they say it sits flush with the bodywork, the headlights. You have a hood scoop, a defined spine running across the roof, maybe Bugatti style, I'm not entirely sure. It's understood that the SUV won't use the carbon monocoque chassis from the company's supercar. We have it I think we have it in pretty much every McLaren, down to the Artura has this carbon fiber monocoque. Specifically, the W1 looks pretty insane when you just look at what's going on underneath the shell with this carbon fiber pieces in there. It looks very, very nice. In 2026, the brand will launch its W1 flagship hypercar, now in its final stages of development. We also have in 2027, we'll bring a hardcore 788 HS, the most extreme evolution of the 750S, and the successor to the 765 LT. So they are going to be pretty busy up until 2028 at least. McLaren is also developing a new supercar featuring a mild hybrid V6 expected to produce around 800 horsepower. Now, for a supercar, I think 800 horsepower is a sweet spot for supercars like this. Yes, they are getting a little heavier. They used to be around 500 horsepower, so adding 300 horsepower seems like a lot, but you have to keep in mind that all this tech that goes into these vehicles today also make them a lot heavier, meaning that we need to push the horsepower a little bit. Not too much. 800 sounds perfect to me. And this entry mild hybrid V6 version will sit above the entry-level Artura. The future lineup could also include a 2+2 Grand Tourer to replace the GTS. That will be interesting to see. And I've been a fan of McLaren's design language for a while now, ever since the P1 came out, because that's the point where I think McLaren overtook the Italians as a much more organic design and much more emotional flow. I think McLaren has some of the best line flow in the business. It's just beautiful cars to look at. And here you can see the skeleton style I was talking about. We have holes in the front end, and then you have a headlight sitting inside of these hollowed out pieces in the front. And they say that the new SUV is going to have a flush mounted headlights, which sits inside in line with the bodywork. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here, because we do have a couple of renderings here. I was trying to figure out where these came from. I'm not entirely sure, but this one in the middle is from Kolesa.ru. We've showed his renderings a couple of times here on the channel, but let's check this out, because I do think this one right here to the right, to the left, number one, and I want to hear your opinion. Which one do you prefer? Number one right here, or number two, or of course number three in this area? Personally, just looking at it like this, the most refined design that I see here is going to be number one, because this one is also the most that sticks out the most and has a new sort of a new design language. But as you can see, the headlights here, they don't sit flush with the bodywork, even though we still have this beautiful framing for it that we're used to seeing from McLaren's for a very long time now. This framing in the front end going down to the smiley face in the lower section, and we also have this key line in the front end. Very fluid looking design. This would be a beautiful looking SUV from McLaren, even though if I look at this design, it looks too much like an EV. I don't know why. Maybe because everything is so covered up in the front end, even though we do have this big intake in the lower section. And since this is not a mid-engine car, you need to have a pretty solid grille in the front end for the SUV. And I think it looks pretty decent. The rear end, though, the three-quarter rear view, this is by far the best view for this vehicle. It doesn't look like an EV in the rear. This looks extremely nice with a long hood in the front end, swooping up to this muscle over the rear axle. We have almost P1 style taillights and a nice framing for it in this section. Very fluid, organic looking lines all over, even in the lower diffuser down here. And of course, quad tailpipes sticking out in the lower section. We do have a roof spoiler here, even though on the production version, they say that it's going to have a pretty substantial spoiler in the back. And I think the spoiler is going to be bigger than what we have in this rendering right here. Wheel design looks fantastic as well. And I kind of like the black cladding that we have going around the wheel arches here, because it wraps around the entire body. You can see it going here in the side skirt, coming in from the front end, and then going all around into the back, into the diffuser right here. And what this does, in addition to the blacked out greenhouse, is of course removing some of this mess. If we're gonna build an SUV for a supercar brand, we need to make them look as nimble as possible, and that means playing around and using graphics to our advantage to make the car look as nimble as possible. And I think that is what's going on here. I also like this side air outlet right here. It looks very cool. Now look at this one. This is clearly taken from the Artura. Essentially what they did here, they took the Artura and just changed the proportions. I think they might have taken a little bit from the DBX when it comes to the proportions of this, but it still looks very clean, even though this is not what I think the production version is going to look like. But it just shows you can take the Artura graphics and slap them on an SUV form, and it will still work pretty well. I think these pieces right here that I'm sketching out right now, these intakes, I think they sit a little too high maybe, and this line is maybe a little too long in this area, but we still have the key graphics as we're used to seeing from McLaren. And I think the side view here, this is where it gets a little bit too much DBX for me, and I think maybe that's what the artist took inspiration from, even though it's not a bad looking design at all. I actually think that the Artura rear end in this case feels, maybe it looks a little better than the P1 style that we have on option number 1. I'm not sure. Let me know which one you prefer again in the comments below. But having the Artura rear end, it looks a little bit like a frog in this case because it is green, as you can see. And this is a massive, absolutely massive diffuser in the lower section. But at the same time, it suits this vehicle to have the diffuser be the bumper as well, sticking out very far from the bodywork here and being a separate carbon fiber piece in the lower section. As long as we have these fluid lines, that is essential for McLaren these days. We cannot have any static lines whatsoever if we're going to build a McLaren. You can see the line here. Again, DBX coming back with this intake or outlet that we have in this area in the front fender. And I do like this carved out portion here because, again, it makes it feel a little bit more nimble. Now, that number 3, very similar to what we have on number 2. Of course, the Artura front end with the clean graphics. The intakes in the lower section looks way cleaner on number 3 here because we have a straight line here going down, and also these black features in the lower section, making it feel nimble as we talked about. We have these Artura headlights here. I do like this color as well, looking pretty clean. And in the rear end, we have, what is this from? Is it a P1 inspired design in the rear? I do like the chamfer that goes on here and how it houses everything. But when I look at these number 1 and 2, these options, option 2, 1 and 2 and 3, I mean, they still feel too close to what we have coming from McLaren today. And if McLaren themselves says that they're going to completely redesign their cars and introducing a brand new design language, that means that it's most likely not going to look too much like the vehicles they have on sale today. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And I really hope this is going to be a massive smash hit for McLaren because I love McLaren. I really like their design language that I have right now with this organic fluid style. And I want them to have an SUV, even though some might complain that McLaren should never build an SUV and all of this. But in today's day and age, that is what car companies need to do. They need to bring in the revenue that the SUV is going to bring into the company and use that revenue to focus on their core identity, which is, of course, supercars. So very exciting time for McLaren, and they are going to be very, very busy going up to 2028.